Hello everyone, welcome to Weathersfield Proctor Library. I'm Glenna Coleman, Youth Services Librarian, and this is our library bear. He has been talking lately about the sizes of things. And so I have stories about characters of different sizes. So our first story is called Stand Straight, Ella Kate. The true story of a real giant. And this is written by Kate Klise and illustrated by Sarah Klise. So, just on the end papers. Average woman's shoe size today is 8.5. And Ella's shoe size was 24. This was the real size of her shoe. Stand straight, Ella Kate. Standing straight, of course, shows that you feel confident with what you're doing. Okay, here we go. Let me make sure you can see the illustrations well. Most tall tales are made up, but my tall tale is true. I was a giant, a real live giant. Ella Ewing, tallest woman on earth. I wasn't born tall. I was a little baby just like any other. Born in 1872, Mama and Papa named me Ella Kate. When I was still small, Papa went to the bank and borrowed money to buy a farm in a place called Rainbow, Missouri. He built a cabin from trees he cut with his own 2 hands. We were a little family, just Mama, Papa, and me. But I didn't stay little for long. When I was 7, I started growing at a most startling rate. Mama couldn't sew dresses fast enough to keep up, so she started adding fabric to the bottom of my favorite dress. Stand straight, Ella Kate, Mama said when she was fixing my hem. But when Mama wasn't looking, I hunched my back so I'd look smaller. At school, I struggled mightily to fit my long legs under my desk. So Papa built a big desk for me. He brought it to school in the wagon pulled by horses. Stand straight, Ella Kate, and show off your new desk, Papa said with pride. I guess he couldn't see how mortified I was. No other girl in my school needed a special desk or wore shoes as big as her pa's, men's size 12. My best friend was a girl named Pearl. Just like her name, Pearl was small and beautiful. When I got teased at recess on account of my size, Pearl suggested we run away. We'll hide you in a secret place where no one can find you, Pearl said. She was only trying to help, to be nice, but where could I hide? I was too big for everything. I was too big for the world. The banner says Independence Day 1885. When I was 13, I stood almost 6 feet tall. My classmates chose me to recite the Declaration of Independence at a big 4th of July celebration. I was surprised and honored. People from 3 counties would be there. I practiced for weeks. When it was time, I walked out on the stage and began to recite the famous words. But I stopped cold when I heard voices from the crowd. Would you look at that girl? Cried one man. She is as tall as a barn. Her hands are as big as skillets, laughed a woman. I'll tell you what that girl is, yelled a boy. She's a freak. I ran off the stage in tears. Yeah, those people didn't really treat her like she had feelings, did they? Mama was upset, but she waited to cry until I'd gone to bed. Don't worry, Papa said. No one's ever treating Ella Kate that way again. We'll keep her safe inside this house for as long as she lives. From my bed, I listened, wishing I could climb inside the big night sky and hide there forever. But I kept growing. By the age of 16, I was 7 feet tall. At 17, I was a foot taller. One day, a man visited our farm. He managed a museum in Chicago. I hear you have a daughter who stands 8 feet tall, the man said. My customers would pay good money to see that, and I'd gladly pay Miss Ella Kate for her time. Papa got mad. Nobody's paying money to gawk at our girl, he fumed. But something in me trusted the man. I believe I'll take that job, I said. And so, when I was 18, my parents and I boarded the train to Chicago. For 1 month, I wore a long dress and a serious expression for 7 hours a day while people stared at me. I made $1,000, which was a whole lot of money in 1890. Back then, you could buy 12 pencils and a bottle of ink for a dime. The tallest lady on earth, Ella Ewing. The following year, I received a letter from the man in Chicago asking me to return to his museum. This time, he wanted me to come for 5 months. He offered to pay me $5,000. 5 months? Papa protested. That's too long. I don't mind, I said. Mama can come with me. Besides, $5,000 is nothing to sneeze at, Papa. It's more than you can make in 5 years of farming. This was true, and Papa knew it. He laughed. I was becoming better at business than he was. I returned to Chicago in 1891, and for the next 6 years, I traveled the country. I appeared in museums, exhibitions, traveling circus shows, and even a World's Fair. People paid 10 cents to see me stand in my fancy dresses. You couldn't blame folks for staring. After all, when I finally stopped growing at the age of 22, I stood a towering 8 feet 4 inches tall in my size 24 shoes. My hands were also impressive. Once, I removed a ring from my finger and gave it to a baby to wear as a bracelet. It fit perfectly. Other times I held a $1,000 bill in my hand. Anyone who could reach the money unassisted was welcome to take it. No one ever did. After I had made enough money, I went back to Rainbow. The first thing I did was visit the bank that had lent Papa money to buy our farm. I paid off the debt. I figured it was the least I could do to thank Papa and Mama for all they'd done for me. Then I did something for myself. I bought some land and started building a house. I paid workers with my own money and told them to build my house with tall ceilings and high windows. I ordered custom-built furniture. Finally, I had a house in which I could stand up straight without stooping. I had the longest bed in town. I even ordered a custom-made buggy and bought a strong horse to pull it. Friends and neighbors liked to visit me at my new house. They always asked to hear about my travels. I told them about the big cities and newfangled automobiles I'd seen. I described the mountains and oceans. I even imitated the tigers and elephants that appeared with me in the circus. Most of my friends had never left home or seen such things, but the more I talked about my travels, the more I missed them. So, the year after I finished my house, I returned to work. I enjoyed my days as a circus show star. Sometimes my unusual size came in handy. When I was introduced to Mr. Charles Ringling at a dinner party in 1907, I was able to shake his hand without moving from my place at the end of the table. My friend, Little Lord Robert, thought that was a fine and dandy trick. Another time, when a bellboy brought ice water to my hotel room, instead of opening the door, I reached through the transom and retrieved the pitcher from his hands. I hope I didn't give him too much of a fright. I always tried to be respectful, and I found that most people were respectful in return. Of course, there was always one person in every crowd who couldn't resist making a cruel joke about my appearance. More than one rude spectator stuck my leg with a pin to see if I stood on stilts. When that happened, I just whispered to myself that Mama and Papa always told me when I was growing up, "Stand straight, Ella Kate." The more I said it, the better I felt. And the more I saw of the world, the more I wanted to see. Because as big as I was, the world was so much bigger, and I intended to see it all. And there's a picture of the real Ella Kate. If you want to read more, you can check this book out of the library. This was Stand Straight, Ella Kate, The True Story of a Real Giant by Kate Klise and M. Sarah Klise. Well, that's our first book about size, and that person, Ella Kate Ewing, was big. This next story is also about size, but it's about small. This is called Paolo, Emperor of Rome, written by Mac Barnett and illustrated by Claire Keane. There are some pictures of Paolo's adventures in Rome. Paolo, Emperor of Rome. Ah, Rome, the eternal city, a place of fountains, food, and music, a place of chaos and beauty, above all, a place of freedom. But not for Paolo. Paolo lived confined to a small hair salon on Via Torino. Often he would press his nose against the window, captivated by the bustle on the sidewalks. "Get away from there, Paolo," Signora Pianostrada would shout. "You're smudging the glass." All night, Paolo dreamed of the sweet life in Rome, and all day he did the same. There was not much else to do in the hair salon. "Lazy Paolo," Signor Pianostrada said. Sometimes the Signora would open the door to sweep a pile of ladies' hair out onto the street. Paolo would run over, his nails clicking on the floor, but the Signora would block the exit by simply lifting her foot. On these occasions, Paolo would poke his nose outside and, sniffing, smell all the smells of Rome, salty, sour, meaty, floury. That was all Paolo got of liberty, a whiff. Oh, but one glorious day there was a breach. The widow Garibaldi, arriving for her weekly appointment, failed to shut the door behind her. Paolo waited for the mistake to be discovered, but already the Signora was putting curlers in the widow's hair. Should he? Could he? He did. And was the city all he imagined? It was more. Bridges and plazas and tall cathedrals, ruined temples, and busy cafes, and statues. Statues of humans and gods and horses. Statues of lions that shot streams of water from their mouths. And high on a hill, topping a column, a statue of a proud she-wolf, the mother of Rome. "How like this wolf I am," said Paolo. "But whereas she is made of stone, I am made of muscles and can go wherever I please." But wherever should he go? Of course, the Colosseum. Paolo stood on the ground of the great arena. Here, thousands of years ago, men and dogs were kept in cages and forced to fight. "How beautiful to build such a towering marvel," said Paolo, "and how cruel to fill it with barbarism." The little dog's soul swelled up, so he thought his ribs would burst. In the middle of the city, Paolo found a field full of ruins and lounging cats. It seemed a good spot for a nap. But no sooner had Paolo entered than a huge tabby bounded over and challenged him. "What business do you have here, little dog?" And it was true, the cat was bigger than Paolo. "I am here to have a nap." "This place is for the cats," said the tabby. "Nap elsewhere." Paolo puffed out his chest. "I will not." The cat hissed and swiped her claws. Pain spread across Paolo's face. He had been cut, and deeply. But rather than flee, Paolo stood and barked. The cat, frightened by Paolo's indifference to injury, disappeared into the grass. Paolo hopped from column to column till he stood upon the tallest. "I am Paolo," he said. "The biggest among you has scratched my cheek, and I did not flinch. Will any other cat challenge me?" The cats were cowed. Paolo curled up and slept. He was awoken by the sound of swelling music. "I would like to hear more of that," Paolo said. He climbed down the columns and sneaked into the opera house. Around him rose arches as in the great Colosseum, and here people watched while a man sang a sad song. When the singer finished, the crowd applauded. They shouted, "Bravo!" and threw down roses. "It must feel wonderful to be adored," said Paolo. "I should like it if one day people shouted for me." The opera had made Paolo hungry. He threw himself back into the madness of the city, wandering down alleys, till he found himself eating from a trash can behind the finest restaurant in Rome. "Truly," said Paolo, "I am living my life." But Paolo's supper was interrupted by the sound of snarls. A pack of ragged curs had crept up behind him. "This is our street," said their leader, who was called Brutus. Paolo laughed. "The streets are for everyone." The dogs considered this. Brutus asked, "Who are you to say so?" "I am Paolo, that escaped from his prison and is like the wolf come to life. I have drunk from the mouth of a lion. I have stared down the cats who live in the ruins, and I will lead you, if you like." The decision was unanimous. All votes were for Paolo, even from Brutus. It was unprecedented. That night, Rome belonged to the dogs. When the sun rose, the pack scrounged up a delicious breakfast. The sun streamed through the building so that the streets appeared pink. Paolo's heart was at peace. But what's this commotion? 6 nuns had fallen into the Trevi fountain. The crowd in the piazza, stupefied, looked on at their awful splashings. "How terrible," said Paolo. "We must do something." "Of course it is terrible," said the dogs, "but what concern is it of ours?" This was outrageous. Heroism was not to be found in the pack, so Paolo must act alone. He leaped into the water and, careful not to tear their habits, pulled the nuns to safety one by one. The carabinieri, arriving on the scene with several life preservers, were astonished to find Paolo had done their work for them. The captain was at first put out, ashamed to be outshined by a small dog. But the cheers of the crowd were contagious, and soon even the proud officers joined in. "Bravo, Paolo!" he shouted. "I'll see you receive a medal for valor." Paolo got more than a medal. In the afternoon, he was granted an audience with the Pope. The Pope scratched Paolo's ears. "I should make you a saint," he said. The sour cardinal frowned. "Your Holiness," he whispered, "it is impossible. He is still living, and besides, he is a dog." "Surely," said the Pope, "we could make an exception." The cardinal shook his head. No matter. Paolo was given a fine room in the papal apartments. Each night the chefs prepared for him some new feast. His bed was made with satin sheets and piled high with goose-down pillows. The walls were covered with paintings by the old masters. Paolo studied the pictures and was impressed by their beauty. But he preferred to look out his high window, from which he could see all of Rome sprawled out before him. The paintings were lovely, but they did not move. The city was always stirring. And so, after some weeks, Paolo made his decision. He bid farewell to his grand apartment. The guards saluted him as he passed through their gate and into the city. The little dog trotted down the winding streets, his nails clicking on the cobblestones. Back to the tumult, for walls are walls, even when papered in gold and hung with Caravaggios. And Pablo's proud spirit was boundless. He could not be contained. The end. This was Paolo, Emperor of Rome, written by Mac Barnett and illustrated by Claire Keane. I hope you enjoyed our stories about different sizes. So we had big and small. Thank you for spending some time with Library Bear and me for Library Storytime at the Weathersfield Proctor Library. I'm Glenna Coleman, Youth Services Librarian, and I'll see you another time. Goodbye.